Hey there, everybody. This is Simmon and Melissa. Welcome to Ep002, Creativity in the Coronavirus. This was an interesting topic. You want to give a little background?
Sure. Well, this episode is about the coronavirus and how it has affected theater and performance-based events locally and around the world, and how people have been creative during this time. And we're going to have two fabulous guests on this episode, Cheyenne Veach and Zealy Wright, and they're going to speak on what they've been doing during this unusual time in our lives and how they've been creative.
And this is something we wanted to have early on in our programming and our episodes because it's happening right now to all of us, and we thought it would be something good to look into. But we also really wanted to try to focus on some of the positive things that people are finding in this really tough time. I think there's plenty of talk about all of the things that are really hard about this time, so it's nice to hear people taking something from that, making something special out of it. So we hope you enjoy episode 2.
Episode 2 of Downstage, Wright, Creativity and the Coronavirus. So in this episode, we're going to be talking about the coronavirus, how it is affecting theater, and more importantly, how people we know and love are being creative during this time. So just to give a little timeline, since so much time has gone by since all of this started, back in December is when we realized something might be going a little bit amiss, and there was an announcement that there was an unexplained pneumonia. January is when the public health emergency of international concern had been declared, and the first case of COVID-19 was in February. So just a few months ago, but it feels like an eternity. By mid-March, all 50 states had cases. And then, unfortunately, on March 12th, Broadway was closed. All 31 shows. So the people who made that decision was the Broadway League, and they're an organization of theater owners and producers. Simmon, when Broadway closed, is that kind of the pivotal moment when you realized something might be really, really, bad about what's going on?
I think that was a big moment for me. I think it was also when Disney closed and was closed for so long. That's never happened.
You're right. I completely forgot about that because living in Florida, hurricanes would come through, tons of disasters, and Disney never closed down. So you're right. That was also a oh my gosh moment. Like, this is serious if Disney's closing and closing for an unforeseen amount of time.
Yeah, that was a big one for me.
So Broadway was supposed to only stay closed until April 12th, which in my mind at that time, I was like, that's a long time. Like, that's an entire month. I can't imagine everything being closed for a month. Little did we know, a month would turn into basically a year. And as of right now, it's looking like Broadway is going to stay closed until 2021. So to put that into perspective, when 9/11 happened, Broadway closed for 48 hours. Which was a big deal back then. Even during the Spanish flu, Broadway did not close. And most shutdowns on Broadway were due to power outages or labor movements, protests regarding labor and all of that. So this is just beyond
unprecedented.
I can't even, and we know people who have been greatly affected on Broadway, but not only on Broadway, but all theaters across the United States and the world have been affected. So it's just really hard to wrap my brain around all of that's going on, even though we're in the midst of it still, and we're 4 months into it. It's hard to see how the effects have greatly affected everybody. So thousands of theaters closed initially, like right within the first few weeks, massive layoffs in all 50 states, indefinite unemployment and economic uncertainty, I loved what the playwright Sarah Rule said. She said, theater's art form boils down to a pretty simple formula. Story plus storyteller plus audience equals theater. And she said, without presence of an audience breathing with us, what happens to our industry? And I found that to be pretty profound. But at the same time, since she wrote that, we have seen what happens when there's not an actual audience. And some of it has been quite lovely and beautiful. And we've been seeing just how creative people can be. So let's see. Oh, you posted, Simmon, on Facebook, I believe, these numbers that they have predicted for the course of the time Broadway's being closed. Would you mind sharing some of those numbers?
Sure, yeah. The post that I shared showed a financial loss after 42 weeks closed of 13,000 performances being canceled, 12 million tickets refunded, 5,000 craft jobs affected. This is 1.5 billion in lost ticket revenue.
That's like my brain. I can't.
Yeah,
billion.
And that means $12 billion absent from the New York City economy. So that's just New York.
Yeah.
That's not even considering all of the many other places that theater exists across the world.
Mm-hmm. And what I've noticed, especially in the media, theater hasn't really been recognized as something to put focus on. And unless you're really involved in theater, you're not really seeing how devastating this has been for everyone involved in theater. Because, I mean, even when you hear about it, it's, oh, the actors have lost their jobs. But there's not just actors involved on Broadway or in theater. You have tons of other behind the scenes people that are now without work.
Well, and, to piggyback on that, my brother he works for a lighting company, and their focus is a lot of concert tours and different types of events, media events, things like that. So they're not necessarily doing theater, but they do, award shows and all of these different things. And all of that has been stopped, put on hold. There's tons of people with tons of other roles and jobs in the arts that are being impacted because of COVID. And you're right, there, from a media perspective, I feel like unless you are the New York Times or a theater related or media related publication, people aren't really covering the fact that the arts are being really, really impacted by this in some ways more than a lot of others.
It's heartbreaking. And healthcare is gone. So most theater people are involved in a union, and in order to get health care, you have to work a certain number of weeks per quarter to qualify and to be eligible for benefits. So without being able to work, there is no health care right now for anybody. And it's devastating.
It's so challenging too, because if you're not part of the union, so the union has, I'm sure has some built-in protections, at least at the beginning. I don't know about how it's functioning at this point. And again, it's very unprecedented. So there's probably some work being done on the back end to try to figure it out.
I hope so.
Yeah, fingers crossed. But I think to a certain extent, also if you're a non-union performer or you're not part of a union in some of these other capacities, then you're really extra struggling because you don't even have anyone sort of fighting for you and being there for you. And as we record this, we're right on the cusp of, I think today is actually the last day for the CARES Act.
Really?
The PUA, which is the additional $600 of unemployment.
Oh, you're right.
And that extended to people who typically would not be eligible for unemployment, like self-employed folks or folks in this type of industry. It's really crazy.
So yeah, every day that passes and that theaters remain dark, entertainment professionals face unprecedented health and financial challenges requiring immediate attention and resources. So that is the negative and the downside of what's been going on with COVID-19 and everything being shut down. But to bring some hope into this, people immediately started getting creative. And within days of closing down theaters, artists and organizations across the country got together and took to virtual platforms to keep theater alive. Something fun that I read was that Shakespeare the theater was closed often during the plague, and Shakespeare would go to the countryside and write. So even back a long time ago, actors and writers got creative when they were not allowed to do their craft. Costume designers started making surgical masks for local hospitals. People like the Shakespeare Theater Company, they started experimenting with moving some of their programming online. Facebook Live drag shows. People were giving sneak peek concerts for albums that were coming up that were going to be released. And even local places that are near and dear to our heart have started doing some really creative stuff. Simmon, would you like to share about the Containment Cabaret?
Oh, yeah, sure. So Theater Statesville, local to us here in Statesville, North Carolina, they've been doing the Containment Cabaret, which I'm proud to say, my fiance Joey, it was his brainchild that he brought to life.
Thank you, Joey.
And all of Theater Statesville has really put their weight behind it and been really excited about it. And so we've done that a couple months running, and it's basically just an online cabaret that we post on YouTube and share a couple of different performances on a theme, just to kind of keep our toes in the pool of creativity. So that's been a fun one.
It's been fun to work on, and if you go back and watch, Simmon is actually in the first episode singing. So make sure to take a listen and a look at that. Also, the Green Room Community Theater, they just had video auditions yesterday for a Midsummer Night's Dream. So instead of auditioning in person, you sent in your video, and they're doing outside Shakespeare performances in September. They also just released free theater classes, like one-time specialty classes that are going to be taking place next week. Lee Street Theater is doing 9 to 5, but they are doing something really unique in that they're doing all their most of their rehearsals via Zoom. I can't wait to talk to some of them afterwards to find out how that worked and how it all came together in the end for putting together a show like that, because I don't think anyone's done that before.
No, and I'm sure it's new territory to be figured out.
Yes.
It will be something very interesting to talk to them about.
Also, Hickory Community Theater has been offering online theater classes like auditioning for the stage or auditioning for online. Also, improv. They even have a Wear a Mask campaign, which I have been loving. It's #SafeAtHickoryTheater, where they've been encouraging everyone to wear their masks so that we can get back into live theater. Finally, the most recent thing that they've done is Black Voices Matter, which is a video composed of a variety of artistic forms of expression, all centered around the theme of giving voice to those impacted by the violence that has most recently spurred the rejuvenation of the Black Lives Matter movement. It is executive produced by Tiffany Christian, who is going to be on one of our upcoming episodes. Tiffany, fantastic job. So if you get a chance, please watch this video. It is on their Facebook page, and all the proceeds, if you end up giving, it is a fundraiser, so all the proceeds from the show will be donated to support the purchase of racially diverse materials for local libraries in the Hickory area.
That's so amazing. And Tiffany is absolutely fantastic. We were so happy to have her on our episode 4, Live or Nothing, which you'll hear a little bit about later in the episode. But also, Tiffany is just like a force of nature, and not only combined with her zest, but also Hickory Community Theater using their platform to speak about and help with a very important matter is just so great. So definitely check it out.
Absolutely. Well, next up, we are going to interview some of our friends. And first, we are going to interview Cheyenne Veach about how she has been creative during this really bizarre time. So I met Cheyenne back in 2015. My husband and daughter were in Seussical the Musical with her at Theater Statesville. And from there on out, we just continued to do shows together and became really good friends with her and her family. My favorite memory with Cheyenne was definitely directing her in Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. My husband and I directed that, and she was our Willy Wonka. She is an incredibly talented performer and just a dream to direct and work alongside. Currently, Cheyenne is a theater student at North Greenville University, and she is getting her BA in musical theater. And while on break due to COVID, she started up Ghost Light Beauty, which is a makeup and hair business. And she also learned to play the ukulele and started writing and producing her own songs. I believe she has 3 or 4 songs out currently. Her videos are on Facebook and Instagram and on YouTube, which we'll share later what those are. And we're really excited to talk to Cheyenne, and we cannot wait to hear what she has to say about all that she's been up to recently. Well, we would like to welcome Cheyenne Veach to the podcast. Cheyenne, thank you so much for joining us today.
Hi, guys.
After working with her on shows, I will say that she is phenomenally professional, kind, incredibly talented, super pleasure to work with, and just a lovely human. So I am so excited that you have said yes to coming on the podcast today.
Yeah, absolutely. I was excited when you asked me to talk about things because obviously I haven't been able to think about theater in a couple months.
Well, I've been following you on Facebook and Instagram and was blown away a few weeks ago when I saw that you were writing your own music, and I saw that you had started up your own business, which instantly gave me the idea to have you on here and to talk about that. But before we get to that, I would love for you to share a little bit about your theater background so that our listeners can kind of know where you're coming from and what you've been doing. So when did you start doing theater, and how did you get started in it?
I started doing theater early in high school, probably when I was about 14. I just started taking drama classes in high school. And really, though, I did do a show at my high school, and it was fun and it was fine, and I had a great time with my friends. But what really got me into it was actually Seussical, the musical with Theater Statesville, simply because that was the first time that I had auditioned for anything and had to sing a major musical piece at all. And it was very eye-opening to see that somebody actually wanted to hear me sing. Aww. And that they thought that I was good. And so like, I mean, I didn't expect anything because I'm friends with a couple people that can sing. And so I was thinking, okay, I'll probably be in the ensemble or something smaller like that, and I'll have a good time with my friends. And then when I got a lead, I was like, oh, they like me. That's cool. So, and I used to be really shy in high school. So theater really just kind of helped bring me out of my shell. And I owe all of that to Seussical and David Bradley and the whole cast of that show. It was just, we were a family. And when I listen to the music of Seussical, it still like makes my heart melt because of all those memories.
Same. I miss David Bradley too.
Yes, he was the sweetest man.
David, if you are listening to this, please come back to Statesville and visit sometime soon.
I love David. Yeah.
So Cheyenne, after you did theater for a few years during high school, you're now off at college. And so could you tell us where you go to school and what you're doing there, what you're studying?
Yes, I go to North Greenville University. It's in Greenville, South Carolina, Tigerville, if you want to be technical. And I am a musical theater major. Before that, I did the VPAC early college program. So I got my high school diploma, and I had an associate's in music attached to that. So I got all of that when I graduated. So that was really helpful as a musical theater major because I got to college and I automatically didn't have to take like half of my music classes that I needed. So I didn't have to take piano or theory or any of the hard things again, which was nice. But it's been really great there. I've met some of my best friends and some of the people I think I'll spend a lot of the rest of my life with. And it's a great community. And I love my professors. They're really sweet. Amy Dunlap is amazing. She has been my director for probably over half of the shows that I've been in. We've done really unique shows that probably a lot of people haven't seen before or heard of before, but we are a Christian university. So a lot of the shows we like to do are based in faith. Like we did The Great Divorce by C.S. Lewis last year, and that was really, really fun. It had a big cast because like each scene was a different kind of mini story. We've done, what else did we do? We were going to do Brigadoon last year this past year. and then the virus hit. So that was the main show that we had to cancel, essentially. But the rest of our season was fine last year, which was great. But it's a wonderful program with wonderful people. We have a great theater. It's a black box theater, so it's really unique and interesting to work in because we build a brand new stage every single show.
Oh, wow.
Not about 90% of the time we have a new stage. So we can do proscenium, we can do like alley. We had one that was like corner to corner. And it's just really fun. We have a grid up top is where we hang our lights, so we're able to drop snow and things like that on our audience, and it's really fun. And
that's exciting.
Mm-hmm. It's great for learning how to project and act to all sides of your audience, because the audience isn't always directly in front of you. So I'm really glad that we have that type of theater and have that at our disposal.
So Cheyenne, what are your future theater goals?
Honestly, ever since I've heard you talk about how you and Lauren met doing theater, I have wanted to work at Sight and Sound in Pennsylvania. It's just, and I watched the, was it Jesus that they had over the Easter?
Yes.
It was phenomenal, and that's just what I want to do. I want to be able to do professional theater, and I really appreciate that company is Christ-centered, and that they mainly that they offer a year-round contract, because like I'm sure we all know that theater doesn't last all year most of the time.
No.
And it's like a 3-month job, and then you have to move on with your life and figure out what to do next. And I appreciate the stability that comes with that kind of show that you get to do all year.
So with the pandemic and school being canceled for a while, how is the pandemic affecting your school year next year? What will it look like?
Hopefully the president of my school is in the mindset that we are going back next year.
Good.
Which I'm very grateful for, because I miss my friends and I miss theater, and that's very hard to do when people can't sit close to each other or touch each other. Like, how do you do theater if you can't make contact with somebody? But so the only thing that makes me a little nervous about the virus is that next year I am a senior, which means I have my senior project. My senior project next year, I'm very excited about it. It's called Joyful Noise, and it's about the writing of Handel's Messiah. It's about the women figures that sang in the show, and the people that helped write it, and even the monarch and everything in England, the history surrounding it all. And I play a woman named Susanna Sibber, and she has a whole scandal around her performing and her husband, and she loses her child, and it's just very heart-wrenching and beautiful and sad and musical and wonderful. And I really hope that we get to do it. It is in the fall. It's supposed to be in November, but what I'm worried about is that we're going to go back to school, and then we'll be there for a month or two, and then they'll realize, nope, we shouldn't have sent you back. And then they're going to send us home again, and I won't be able to do it.
I hope that doesn't happen.
I hope so too.
Since it's changed some things, and one of the things I really want to talk to you about is, I know you have been incredibly creative over the last few months, and I would love to hear what you've been doing. I would love to hear about your songwriting and about your makeup and hair business that you have going on now. So if you could tell us a little bit about that, what it is, but what also sparked the idea to do it.
Absolutely. I always knew that I loved acting and I loved singing, but I always knew that I just loved everything about theater. And I specifically love the part of theater where you get to transform into somebody else. I just think that that's really cool. And I like the psychological aspect behind being a different person, and just the costumes and the fantasy involved. It's just really fun. So I thought about, like, since I've been auditioning at a bunch of places, and not directly because of the virus, but just because of life in general, sometimes you just don't get hired. to be an actor. And so I wanted some other tools that I could offer theaters my help and to be hired in different ways. And so I thought, okay, well, I really love hair and makeup and costume design. How could I do that if I'm not directly helping with the show? So I decided that I would basically build my own portfolio just on my own without any kind of prompt. And I would just do all these crazy makeup hair things on myself or on people that I have close by, and take really good specific pictures of it. And then if a theater didn't hire me for acting, I would email them back, be like, that's okay, thank you for your time. However, if you need a hair and makeup person, like you're doing Wizard of Oz, you need somebody to do the Scarecrow, the Tin Man, the Lion, whatever you need, I know how to do that. So just remember my name. Here are some pictures that I've done. Keep me on your list if you need a person like that.
Smart.
Love that.
Very smart.
My gosh.
I was saying, I looked at some of your pictures, and first off, I like never wear makeup. Like even just like regular makeup, I just don't do it. So really the only time I ever wear makeup is when I'm in a show. And my skin like is like, what is happening? But I was looking at some of your amazing creations, and I saw the one that was the Hamilton star.
Oh yeah.
With him standing on the star on your eyelid. And I was like, how do you do that? I would like, oh man, it would be a mess. My face would be a mess. I would have had to put oil on it like 17 times to remove it and try again. Like it would just, I could never do that. So definitely not only a good idea to be able to help yourself get work, but also just really, really cool.
I know. I'm looking at some of Cheyenne's photos on Instagram right now, and she can do everything, not just beauty or like there's some gory stuff like special effects makeup. I mean, she turned herself into a lion. Don't worry, at the end of this, we will give you her Instagram account and her Facebook page info, and you will need to check her out because this stuff will blow you away. You do hair too. I saw some hair pictures on there as well, and you're really good. I wish I would have had you around for prom and homecoming.
Right. I thought about that too. That's really, I don't want this to sound arrogant when I say this, but I always knew like I was pretty good at doing hair. Mm-hmm. And my hair used to be like pretty long, but obviously now it's kind of hard. I have a pixie cut now, so I can't really do things on myself. But I started doing things on my mom who has longer hair, and I actually invested in like a head stand that has long brown hair that I can braid and things like that.
So tell us about your songs. I know you've just released a new one. This is your third one in what, like 3 weeks? Mm-hmm. I don't know how you release so many so quickly, and they're all really, really good. And it's not just a song. She also puts together a video of it. So it's like you're watching a music video, which you can see on Facebook. And I believe you can see the videos on Instagram as well.
Yes, Facebook, okay. Instagram, and YouTube. That was not really a planned thing that I decided to do. It just kind of happened. I had a temporary job, just like as a receptionist, but it was about 45-minute drive. So I would be driving, I'd be listening to my music, and then I would hear like a lyric or something, and I would pause it, and I'd be like, that could be a whole song just in that sentence. And then I would just sing things to myself in the car, and I would like record it on my voice memos on my phone, and I would be like, okay, I'm gonna work with that when I get home. And then in one day I had all 3 of those in one day, and I was just like, how? And so I don't know. And it's funny because I don't know where this all came from, because about 6 months ago I was trying to come up with an anniversary present for my boyfriend. It was our 1-year anniversary, and I was like, he always tells me I need to sing more, so I'm gonna write him a song, and that'll be great. And I could think of nothing. Like my head was blank, and I worked on it for months and months because I was like, I can't, everything I write down sounds goofy and cheesy. And then but I am really proud of what I came up with, and I intend to record that one soon because it's been in my voice memos just near at the bottom, and it's completely finished. I just need to, I don't have a piano in my home anymore. I have a keyboard, but when you record on the keyboard, you can hear the little plastic clinks of the keys when you press down. So it's been easier to record on my ukulele so far.
Cheyenne, she was so awesome. We're so happy to have Cheyenne. Thanks for coordinating that. Melissa helped us get connected.
I miss her so much. We used to see each other all the time, and now that she's grown up and off to college, I don't get to see her anymore, and it really makes me sad. So it was good to see her face via Zoom and get to hear everything that's been going on.
Yeah, no, completely. We also have another guest on the episode that we're really excited to talk to, David Zealy Wright. And David came onto the show to talk about his drag character, DeVida, and what she's been up to during this COVID-19 period. And DeVida was Miss Gay North Carolina America in 2003. She's also the reigning Miss Charlotte Pride, and she's the creative director for Not Your Mama's Bingo, which is a fundraiser that's been going on for about 10 years. They raised money for a lot of wonderful organizations, and David will talk a little bit about that in the interview. And most recently, DeVida has had a cooking show on her YouTube channel called It's Not Delivery, It's DeVida, which is absolutely fabulous, and we'll talk about that on the interview as well as give you some information about where you can find that. David has also appeared in local community theater productions, including he's been Edna Turnblad in Hairspray and Albin in La Cage aux Folles. And David works in education and is also a mental health professional. We're so happy to have him here. Here's our chat with David.
David, thank you so much for joining us today.
It is my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So just tell us a little bit about yourself. What do you do for a living? Maybe a little bit about your family life.
Sure. So I guess you could say I'm somewhat of a, I like to say at the end of the day that I am like teacher, healer, artist. That those encompass who I am. My full-time job is I teach psychology for Catawba Valley Community College here in Hickory, North Carolina. We're actually also starting a new degree program in the fall, Human Services Technology, where we're going to be teaching new helping professionals. It's a 2-year degree program. It's a applied associate in science. And then I also work in private practice as a therapist in the afternoons and evenings. I find the two balance each other, that, you know, my work as an educator informs my work as a clinician and vice versa. And also not having to rely on clinical work for my primary income means that it limits that ethical challenge of being too focused on money. In my opinion, for me, it helps me to stay focused just on my clients and what they need, what's best for them. Artistically speaking, I honestly, like when I was working on pursuing my professional career, I was artistically anorexic. I did nothing because I felt like I wasn't allowed to be a professional and the artist that I am. Fortunately, I figured out via theater that was not true, and that, we can get into that more later. But then my family life, my husband and I have been together for 21 years, and we were not able. Of course, we weren't able to get legally married until 2011, and we got married in. Wait, was it 2011 or 2000? No, it was 2010. It was 2010. Ooh. So, but it literally was like DC was where we could do it, and so it was with the national monument behind us in the pictures on the mall there, and yeah, because we'd been together 11 years. That's right, because I remember in our vows, and but it still wasn't legal everywhere else. When DOMA fell, that's when we said, you know what? Now is the time to start trying to pursue starting a family. Neither of us were willing to, because at the time there was a lot of legal question about as far as adoption would go, that North Carolina only let one of us legally adopt a child. And it just, I didn't feel that it was fair to a child to bring them into a legally questionable situation. Once our marriage was recognized as legal everywhere, we went right in, started the process, and we were really lucky. It basically took just 2.5 years. You know, we went through the classes, and we did a foster placement, and then that following September, we were placed with our son Malachi, and he had already been kind of in process in the system. So the parental rights for his birth parents were terminated, and the adoption was finalized the following April. So our lives, you know, well, prior to coronavirus, were super busy, of course. My husband's an accountant, and at the time before coronavirus, he was working in Statesville and commuting. And I was, of course, teaching at CVCC and seeing clients. Everything's had to transition to online. Derek has taken a job back in Hickory, still working in accounting. And my son, bless his heart, his first year of kindergarten got disrupted. And so we were homeschooling. And, you know, he's been lonely, missing being with friends. And of course, we are his playmates. I no doubt after this conversation, I'll be going outside to bounce on a trampoline. Even at my age, you know, we make it work. He's very creative, loves to be the center of attention. Don't know where he gets that from. But I mean, our family is very, I would say very typical of any family, you know. That's really, and I will say, you know, he gets into the creative aspects and things that I create and do. And my husband, Derek, or Mally calls him Papa, has been into playing on TikTok to entertain himself. So that's kind of, you know, what life has been as we wait to find out what happens for school in the fall.
It sounds like a fantastic life.
I'm pretty fond of it. I can't complain, honestly.
I love following your family on social media. So, David, you are a drag queen. Could you tell us a little bit about how you got started and what has inspired you to keep going with that?
Sure. So for me, so I have a sister that's also trans, born male, transitioned to female. For her, drag is something that's like, she does character stuff. It's something that conceals who she is in her everyday life. For me, drag reveals. It allows me to explore gender beyond the binary. I would say that I'm probably like my most fully realized self, you know, as far as the energy that I project. I didn't understand all of that when I started doing drag at 19. I was a student at ASU so I graduated high school in 1995, went to ASU. Things were very, very different for queer people at that time. I was part of a group that helped start what's now the professional drag show fundraiser that they do twice a year. I was part of the group that started that.
That's so cool.
In 96. And it was an exciting time, but it was a scary time. You know, HIV and AIDS were still really decimating North Carolina. Meds had only existed since 93. And, you know, emotionally, school did not work out well for me the first go round. So after 3 semesters, I left. I started a career as a professional makeup artist and doing drag and traveling around to nightclubs. And, you know, and that was, and Derek and I met after that had started. You know, Derek and I met, it was the last year that I lived in Boone. So that would have been in 99. So we met, and our focus at that point was solely on my drag persona and drag career. You know, at the time, I thought I wanted to be a performer for a living. Fast forward to, I ended up winning Miss Gay North Carolina America in 2003. I was the 25th anniversary. Went and competed at Miss Gay America in Little Rock, Arkansas. Did not have a really enjoyable experience. There are lots of reasons for that, least of which being young and broke and inexperienced. Came home, reigned over preliminaries all over the state, gave up the contest. My parents were there. And I remember thinking, I don't think it's going to get much better than this. So the very next day, I went back to school at CVCC. Ironically, the person that taught psychology when I was a student there that convinced me I could do grad school is whose job I ended up taking when she moved back home to Tennessee. It's a very full circle, but I was in show choir. So I was trying to find other ways to meet that need. And then I got it into my head, okay, you want to be, you want to work in the mental health field. No one is going to take you seriously if you have anything to do with the performance world. So I dropped everything. Oh. Looking back, I'm lucky that it didn't kill me, to be honest, because some of the ways that I was trying to cope and were terrible. And even, you know, and there were other interpersonal things that ended up happening that never would have happened if I had not left, you know, my artistic side on the shelf. But I had this moment that I always talk about, that if I ever write a book about my life, it'll be called I Found God in a Giant Pink Can of Hairspray. Because I had this moment where I played Edna Turnblad at the Green Room Community Theater, and I was inside this giant pink can of hairspray. And I had done all the wigs for the show, done my own makeup, you know, literally I'm sitting in this can thinking, these are all these things, me singing, performing, my wig style, all of that, all these talents or gifts that I have that I did not earn. They are being celebrated in rural North Carolina, and we're selling out performances. Okay, I get it. Like, message received. And then after that, when I was Alban in La Cage aux Folles at Hickory Community Theater, literally it was that life would imitate art. That did this show, had my heart's desire was to be a parent. That show really tells that story about family and in an unconventional way. And I guess you could say I'm somewhat of an unconventional mom, even though I respond to dad or daddy. And then we find ourselves with our own Jean-Michel. And I made the decision once, you know, Malachi got old enough to understand like what was going on, that it was okay for him to know about drag or what drag was or what that, you know, what we were creating there. And I'll never forget his conceptualization was, I like to dress up as Power Rangers, but my daddy dresses up like Wonder Woman. You know, that it just, to him, it was just playing dress up and it was just magic and creativity. You know, he's been in one of my cooking videos at his insistence. That was not my pushing him or any pressure at all. It was, I want to help. It's just really cool to be at this place of full circle of something that was very self-focused that now incorporates my whole of who I am and my family.
So what are your future performing goals? What does that look like for you?
Ultimate goal, I am wanting to write well, let me back up for a second. One of the other ways that I continue to do things that serve what my my goal or purpose is doing things that like I'm wearing my Not Your Mama's Bingo shirt. It's a fundraiser that I've been a part of since its inception 10 years ago. And we now raise over $15,000 a year for this area's AIDS service organization. And we do it, you know, basically, anybody that wants to do drag and get on stage with us, it doesn't matter, born male, female, straight, gay, we don't care. And it's always themed in a production. This year it was supposed to be Game of Thrones. Unfortunately, it's not been able to work out.
That would have been something.
Yeah, it was going to be Game of Bingos.
Oh my gosh. I love it.
Yeah, and I had a suit of armor gown that I was making. I sew almost all of my own clothes. And so it's like a suit of armor gown. But
Incredibly talented, David.
Thank you. Well, I was self-taught. I came from the Torch Song Trilogy School of Drag. Figure it out. But then also doing the fundraiser that we've done with the Newton Conover Auditorium. That was a fundraiser for them as well as for Outright Youth, which you know, we've had protesters, et cetera. I always say they're part of the cast because they demonstrate the need for us to continue to be there and to continue to do what we're doing. So I see them as a good thing. Even though they probably wouldn't appreciate that. But my ultimate goal within that context, that umbrella of being able to take parts of queer culture and art and present them in ways that can connect families and encourage understanding and kindness and compassion is my one-woman show, which will be called Middle-Aged Ninja Mutant Disney Princess.
I love that title.
And it's basically kind of fashioning myself as this, the premise of the show is me going over what the requirements are to be a Disney princess and not understanding why I can't do that. Completely ignoring the fact that I'm a big old dude in a dress. That it's kind of, and so it's kind of sort of playing with what the idea of beauty is and the expectations of gender. And then it's taking classic Disney princess songs and rewriting the lyrics.
Yes.
I love everything about that.
Yeah, that's my ultimate goal is to produce that and pack a theater with it.
I will be there.
Well, and when not only will we be there, but also when that comes, we'd love to have you back on the podcast to talk about it because
awesome.
that would be absolutely great.
Yeah, this year we were a little sad about this year. Our goal for our Drag Me event, because the event happens, we do it in Newton. We've also done it in Lincolnton, and the goal was to take it to Charlotte this fall, and it was going to be a part of Pride. Like it was going to be big.
Oh,
the
wow.
event. Yeah, the event this go round was Drag Me to the Magic Queendom, so it was Disney themed.
I do remember seeing that.
Yeah, of course it fell through, unfortunately. We'd love to bring it to Statesville.
I'm all about it.
I'll rally.
Yes, I will write letters. Let's do it.
And it's a fundraiser. If you guys have, you know, a youth organization that you would want to benefit, we can sure talk about it.
Fantastic. So you kind of touched on it just a few minutes ago, but I don't know if there's any other things that have come about because of the pandemic, but has it changed your goals, your current goals or your future goals? What's been going on over the last few months and what will continue to potentially go on for quite some time?
Sure. So if you had asked me a year ago, I would have said that my goal was to try and get on RuPaul's Drag Race. That to me, that was like the ultimate goal, you know, as far as for a performer, an artist, yada, yada, yada. But in the same breath, I would have told you that I don't want to stop teaching. I don't want to stop working with clients. You know, I tend to be somebody that wants to try to do everything. But then I saw the contract for the show and knew that there was no possible way that I would ever feel okay with signing it. So interestingly enough, a lot of the brain children that have happened from coronavirus were things that were already on my mind. My beauty therapy, makeup tutorials, It's Not Delivery, It's DeVida, my cooking show that we're producing. These are all things that were brain children long before. the whole coronavirus situation occurred. This just it forced me to actually do it because suddenly I had time.
I did want to talk about real quick the cooking show because it's delightful. Also, I love the name. It's the perfect name. Um, and I think when I was watching it, one of the things I love about drag, and I think is so interesting about drag, is something about it makes it so accessible to folks who probably might label themselves as not very open-minded, but there's something about drag that somehow is this connective tissue that brings people over to the other side a little bit and opens that door, cracks it open. And I love it. And I think in those videos, and where you're combining sort of this like 1950s mom, sort of like traditional June Cleaver style idea, along with something that's very modern and new, and something that's also within a drag character. I feel like you're really able to bring out the most exciting parts of your personality and really amplify them. And that's really something that connects with people. And as I was watching it, I was just like, oh, this is exactly it. This is the type of thing that like people see it and they're like, well, maybe it's not, maybe I was wrong about this, or maybe I'm thinking skewed about queer life and about, differences among people. And I think that that's something that's so beautiful about drag, and something that's so perfectly encapsulated in the cooking videos that you're doing. So
you are making me smile all over the place. I can't even tell you. The fact that you caught every single reference and intention with that video makes me so happy.
Well, and I also wanted to talk a little bit about so obviously you've been creating a lot of things and sort of been able to manifest things that you've been wanting to do for a long time and maybe haven't had the time. Do you feel like that's been the positive impact of the coronavirus for you? Or do you feel like there's been a negative impact on your creativity and all the things kind of bubbling up in your mind?
So to answer that, I would probably want to share what my theoretical orientation is as a therapist. I come from a very existential viewpoint. My favorite book is Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. And in it, I'm not sure if you're familiar with it, but he was a Jewish psychotherapist that was imprisoned in Auschwitz during World War II. And from the experience of that suffering, he pioneered a school of thought and therapy that essentially we can make good things out of bad things. One of the comments he made in there was observing the beauty of a sunset, even amidst the Nazi death camps, which is powerful to think somebody could try to, reorient how they're seeing something because of how it's affecting them emotionally, physically, etc. So as difficult as Corona has been and isolating, and I mean, we're a family of extroverts, and extroverts are not okay right now. As difficult as that has been, I really will, in the rear view, will choose to see it as, wow, if it hadn't been for that, I wouldn't have had all that time at home with my son, all that time to create. I've made several costumes, created several wigs, had time to make a YouTube channel and online content. So yeah, no, I'm going to look back and remember that stuff as opposed to the negative.
Wow, it was so awesome to have David on. We we got to know his husband, Derek, a little bit when we did Bright Star at the Green Room, and Derek is absolutely fabulous. And so being able to see all of David's content then on Facebook and in different portals, just falling in love with him through what he puts out there. It's just been so great to be able to talk with him directly and get an understanding of DeVida as a character and all of the great work that he and she do all the time.
Can't wait to have him back and, well, DeVida back on a future episode.
Yes. We've been plotting some great future episodes. So hopefully to feature David in the future. The next thing we really wanted to talk about was just some other things we've seen, friends and family and different folks just kind of doing what people have been doing with their time that we've seen. I'm sure other people have been doing other things, but I know a lot of the stuff that's flowing on my news feed and on Instagram, a lot of people have been taking to art, drawing, painting. I know David Brown from the Green Room has been doing these fantastic videos of him drawing every day. I'm amazed because I cannot draw to save my life. My daughter's also been painting, but people have been doing TikTok. I know someone, Kelly Mitchell, who has been writing plays right now. I know it's something she's been doing over the last few years, but she's been having a lot of extra time to do it. People have been refinishing furniture, painting their rooms, redecorating. David Townsend, he did this really cool thing at the beginning of this where he was like gardening and he was making these little homes that looked like a little
like fairy houses almost.
That was so great in the garden, and I was like, oh my gosh, I love these need to go on forever and ever.
David, I would like one, please. I will pay you all the money for it. They're darling, and I don't know if I haven't seen him post anything recently. He's been doing a lot of I don't know if it's TikTok or on. If it's on just Facebook, it is TikTok.
I think it is TikTok.
But lots of Golden Girls, and I'm thoroughly enjoying watching
Golden Girls
all
and
of them.
Designing Women.
Yes, Designing Women.
Which is,
Thank
love
you,
it.
David.
And they're just so fun. Also, a friend of mine who's from Reading, where I grew up, Reading, Pennsylvania, he has worked on Broadway. He lives in New York. He's a fabulous actor, dancer, singer.
All the things.
All around entertainer. He's hilarious. Danny Gardner. He's absolutely fabulous. I recommend that you follow him on all portals, including on Instagram. I watch a lot of his stuff. He has great stuff that he posts. So I'm always looking for it because I'm like, Danny will have something awesome and funny. But he's been doing these great parody videos, like taking Broadway songs and changing the words. He did one with "You've Got Trouble."
Yes.
It's just. They're so hilarious.
I need to find that on Instagram. The Instagram. I'm still new to. I'm still new to. I'm old. Okay.
No, you're not.
But and Tiffany, who we were just speaking about, she got back into cooking, which she hasn't had a lot of time for. So, a lot of people are doing things not just theatrically creative, but widening their horizons. Zoom productions, Zoom storytelling. I've been seeing people doing children's stories over Zoom, and it's just, I want to cry a little bit. It's so sweet. Something unique my daughter's been doing, she will get old magazines from either a thrift store or friends, and she will spend hours cutting them up and making these beautiful collages, and they're all themed, and I don't know, I flip through them and I just feel so soothed. And so she's been cutting up magazines and making really creative stuff with it.
That's awesome.
People are taking acting classes and voice lessons online, working on fashion, designing things, do-it-yourself crafts. I know we painted my daughter's room. It was one of those, let's put it off because we don't ever have time. Well, now there's not as much of an excuse. So just doing all the things that we haven't had time for before.
Well, and another thing that I've really loved that's been online as well, that's been performance-wise, is another friend from Reading, another Dan Pardo. He's amazing. He's a musician, music director. He's worked on so many different projects, but he and his wife, Chrissy, have done these amazing piano bar hours where they'll just go on Facebook Live and he'll play and they'll both sing. They'll take requests and whatever, and then they put up their Venmo account and they just say, hey, if you want to give us tips, give us some on Venmo. If not, no problem.
Yeah.
But it's really great, and it's just super fun.
I love that.
And they're both very talented, so getting to watch them just kind of sing and have fun has been really great.
So, Simmon, what have you been doing anything creatively, or what would you say you've been doing outside of the norm during this time?
I would say during this time I've been doing this. So
Yeah,
this has been podcasting. This has been a lot, and a lot of great stuff, and but just figuring it out. We're new to it, so I want it to be as good as it can be. So I try to spend a good amount of time working out the finer details, but it's been fun. I mean, as much as there have been moments of stress, it's been really fun. Also, I think I have been trying to take some time just to slow down.
Yes.
And enjoy just kind of being relaxed and maybe not doing as much and not being in a show. And so as much as I miss doing it, it's also like forced me to kind of slow down a little bit and be like, it's okay to just lay here and do nothing or read a book.
Yes, I feel like our list is very similar. So I have my note cards and I'm reading it. And it looks like Simmon has my same note card. I was so busy prior to all of this that it gave me permission to slow down and to relax, which I hadn't done in so long. And same thing, reading. I hadn't read an actual book. Like, I read a play or a script of some kind, but I didn't read for pleasure in the last few years. And I started up, my best friend from Washington State, we used to have an in-person book club all the time, and then we moved. And for some reason, until the pandemic, I've been gone for 6 years, and we didn't realize until 4 months ago that, we could actually still do book club and do it via video chat. So we started up our book club again, and we've read 2 books now, and it's been I've loved being able to get back into reading and having the time for it and not being pulled too many directions and feeling overwhelmed with reading and but just like you said, relaxing, taking that time.
And I think with reading too, it's been nice to be able to do it because so often I've been so exhausted by the time I can pick up a book, like before I go to bed or whatever. And I would pick up a book and I'd read one page and be so tired and just have to fall asleep. And it's like, you're never going to get through a book if you're just reading one page a day. I mean, it's something, but it's not
going to take
enough.
years.
Yeah, it's going to take forever. And so it's been nice to feel like when I do read, I have a little bit more energy for it.
And the brain capacity to hold the information in a little bit.
Not have to reread the page that I read yesterday.
Yes. Well, and so because we were doing book club and I want to remember what we've read, I've been taking notes. It's so bad. But it's the only way my brain will remember it. Trying to think of some other stuff that I've been doing. I organized all my drawers and closets. I love doing that. Don't normally have the time. Of course, now that 4 months have gone by, a lot of the stuff I organized is now disorganized again, but we don't need to go into detail about that. I've been doing really good about kind of exercising daily. I'm not like an exercise fiend, but I've been at least taking a walk every day, doing something, outside of just sitting on the couch, it's felt really good and energizing.
Joey he reads music. And he knows how to play the guitar a little bit and the piano a little bit. And so we've been having fun where he sits at the piano and plays out, really different songs, and we sing and just have some fun. And that's I love that because that's just such a fun thing to do. And we don't even care how we sound.
How did the pandemic affect you theatrically? Were you involved in anything at the time when everything shut down?
Yes. So Joey and I were actually both, he was supposed to play Harold Hill in a production of The Music Man, and I was also cast in that production. And unfortunately, because of the pandemic, we were probably about a month into rehearsal, maybe a little less, and things got canceled. And we understood completely, but it was definitely a bummer. We hope to audition for a couple of other things that were supposed to be coming up, and those all fell through as well. I think Shrek was gonna happen at Lincolnton, and we were going to audition for that, and that didn't work out. So it was a bummer, but again, understandable. What about you?
Yeah, so I was set to teach a masterclass at a elementary school that got canceled. I was going to teach some adult movement classes. I had choreographed a few numbers for a high school they were doing 9 to 5, and that got I had taught everything I needed to teach, and they were about to perform.
Aww.
And it got canceled. And then I was going to audition for an upcoming show, and those auditions, well, I just found out they actually didn't get completely canceled. They got moved to 2021. So I can still potentially audition depending on how it lines up with the Secret Garden. So yeah, that's a few things got canceled, and yes, I did have some work get canceled, but I'm very thankful my husband still had his job and has his job, which is wonderful, because I know that's not the case for most people.
Well, and definitely, I mean, I think we've and rightfully so. I mean, but that's part of the topic, is talking about, creative things and how that's impacted people. But I think the other piece of this is that there are plenty of people that have been negatively impacted in other parts of their lives, like their jobs and such, that have just put them in a position where they really couldn't do anything creative, which is just breaks my heart for folks. And obviously at the end of the day, it's more important that you eat and that you keep a roof over your head, and all of that is priority number one. But it's hard when that impacts other things that you enjoy doing.
So to wrap things up, what are we hoping, if anything, theaters would do over the next few months while we're still kind of on lockdown? And so what is our hope for the future of theater, and especially over the next couple of months?
That's a really good question. And I think my thought process has kind of grown and changed and is growing and changing daily as this progresses and we see how things go. I think ultimately, as always, my hope is going to be that theater thrives in any environment, and that we find new ways to connect with our audiences. And although it might be slightly different, that we continue to pursue that path and go down that path and see what's there and not be afraid of it.
Continuing to think outside the box and adapt as we find more information.
That was much more eloquent. I just spoke for however many minutes. Sorry, guys. Yes, that. Adapt. Find
ding,
ways.
ding, ding. That is also my hope. This was a really unique episode. And again, we just want to thank, everyone who has produced anything online, who has kept the creativity going and alive. We all appreciate you so much. And thank you, Cheyenne and David, for being on this episode. Don't forget to follow them on their different social media platforms. Cheyenne's Instagram page is at Veach Cheyenne and at ghost_light_beauty. She's also on Facebook with those same names. And David is Living DeVida Loca TV on YouTube and at Living DeVida Loca on Instagram.
We'll also have some posts up on our social media sharing how you can find them and follow their amazing content.
And thank you guys so much for listening to episode 2 of Downstage Wright. Please follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and our website. And you can find our other podcasts on Apple Podcasts. And check out our other 3 episodes that are part of our launch: What We're All About, Not So Amateur Hour, and Live or Nothing. Again, Apple Podcast. And our next episode will be airing on Monday, August 24th, and that is our arts education panel. Thank you so much for listening.